Grain-free dog foods have gained so much popularity in recent years, but in this video I am going to explain what the best grain-free kibble is for your puppy, and I'm going to give you as much information as possible. And of course we are going to explore what the best grain-free kibble is for puppies with a sensitive stomach. Now the one thing I want you to do is to watch the video until the end, because I'm going to give you a 360 overview of the problem you are having and how you can actually tackle it. Now the first thing I want you to realize is that having a dog with a sensitive stomach is an issue in and of itself, meaning that there is something that you are currently giving your dog, being food or treats, that is causing a problem with their stomach. There is something that is aggravating their stomach. So the first thing I want you to do is assess everything you are giving them. Any treats, any food, and anything else your puppy is currently getting. Once we have gathered every single thing we give our puppy, the next step is going to be for you to read all the ingredients of every single thing you give them. So I want you to turn the back of food over and I want you to read every single ingredient in that dog food. If you see anything that's too vague or anything that in your opinion shouldn't be in a dog's food, maybe that is the actual problem. Maybe that is what is causing the inflammation. These are some pointers as to what can be causing inflammation and a sensitive stomach in a dog, especially in a puppy. Any wheat, any barley, any corn, any rice, things like meat and animal derivatives, things like animal fats, things like dextrose or sugar, for example. All those are one, very vague ingredients, and two, some of them are ultra refined, ultra processed ingredients. Remember that your dog, if you look at their mouth, they would have a very hard time digesting and eating wheat, gluten, rice, or things like corn. So those are highly refined carbohydrates that your puppy is going to have a very hard time digesting and breaking down, and that could actually be the cause for an upset stomach. So the next natural question you'd be asking yourself is, what do I do in order to change and to find the food that will agree with my puppy's stomach? Well, I want again to give you some pointers. We are going to choose a single protein food, meaning that if you go for either a kibble, a wet food, or raw dog food, you are going to make it one single protein only. So just chicken, just sardines, just rabbit, or just lamb. One single protein. If you give your dog too many proteins, you are not going to be able to know what is causing, what is triggering the sensitivity in your puppy. Now, grain-free doesn't necessarily mean better these days, unfortunately. Manufacturers have come very adept to changing one inflammatory ingredient for another inflammatory ingredient. In a lot of grain-free dog foods, you are going to see things like pea starch or potato flakes, or maybe even a lot of sweet potato. Now, these again will be filler, and these are arguably detrimental to your dog's stomach. So the fact that you are moving or looking out for a grain-free food is going to be a bit of a nightmare if you don't know what you are doing. But don't worry, I am going to help you. The first thing I want you to do is, whenever you have chosen this single protein food, is to check the ingredients and to check that the amount of total carbohydrates isn't too high. So let's say we have a grain-free dog food with 50% grain-free carbohydrates. That is a bit too much in terms of carbohydrates for our dogs. So we want to keep as much meat content as possible and as low carbohydrates as possible. Now, I want to give you some actual recommendations for single protein foods and for low glycemic carbohydrates. Puppies tend to do very well on either salmon or anything fish. They will contain omega-3s and they will be anti-inflammatory. Anything fish is going to be easily digestible and it's going to be a very good source of protein. In terms of carbohydrates, if I were to choose a carbohydrate for my dog, it would be either sweet potato or it would be a little bit of potato. Now, let me be very, very clear. If you turn that bag of food over and it says sweet potato and potato and it's over 50% or even over 40%, the chances of you striking gold are going to be very, very slim. We want to have a very high proportion of meat, let's go for salmon, and a very low proportion of carbohydrates, of sweet potato. 80% salmon, 20% sweet potato, not 50% salmon and 50% sweet potato. That would be way too much. One of the most common mistakes people do with their puppies is failure to address the actual ingredients and the accountability of everything they are giving their dog. So from now on, everything you give your dog is going to be heavily addressed by yourself. Take note of all the ingredients. Take note of everything you give the dog. If you give your dog any treats, those treats are going to have to be of the same protein as the kibble you choose. For example, let's say we have chosen a reindeer kibble. All the treats you will give your puppy have to be reindeer as well. Why? Because if your dog is good on reindeer, you don't want to be diverting and giving the dog whatever you feel like. The one thing we see all the time is that people will try to find a dog food that works for their puppy and then they will give the dog anything and everything, and that's when we start losing track and losing what we have given their dog and what the dog is good and bad with. So try to be as strict as possible and try to keep everything in the same lane and the same protein. Once you know that the dog is okay and has settled on a particular food, again, high in meat content and very low in carbohydrates, we want to introduce slowly but surely all the sources of protein. So let's say our dog is okay on reindeer. Now we are going to do salmon and we are going to start giving our dog salmon-based treats and salmon treats. I would recommend 100% salmon treats and 100% salmon-based kibble. That way we will be incorporating one meat at a time, and that's how we can treat the sensitivity in our puppy. Now, it is very hard to recommend one particular grain-free food because there are thousands, and it really does depend where in the world you are watching this from. However, you can head to the petquarter.co.uk, link in the description. We only sell really good foods and we only sell grain-free kibbles. And so there are wonderful kibbles there. There are single protein foods that you can choose for your puppy, and those would be very, very good. 95% of the time we find that if you up the quality of the food you are currently giving your puppy is going to get better. Your puppy's stomach and sensitivity is going to be heavily diminished and solved altogether. But if it doesn't, there is a seminar I put together with regards to allergies and sensitivity, and so I want you to watch it because I think it's really going to help you and your puppy. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.